So we got some listings here of potential Takara Studio Series lineup figures. Now, some of these we already kind of know. We knew about the World War II Hot Rod. We knew about the Dark of the Moon Shockwave, the 2007 Megatron, the they call it Off-Road Bumblebee, but that's probably the Bumblebee Jeep. The Dark of the Moon Roadbuster we just recently learned. But there's 3 here that we haven't really seen definitive listings. 2 of them we already really knew they were coming. And 1 that we didn't even know was in the pipes, and now we do know. So the 2 that we already kind of knew was we have a leader class Scavenger and a Voyager scale Scrapper, both of them Constructicons, both of them part of Devastator. We know Devastator was coming, so we knew that these characters were obviously going to be coming at some point too. The only revelation that we really get from this is that Scavenger is going to be a leader class. So this Devastator, as time progresses, is going to be a massive figure. So it's going to be something that I heavily suggest for people that have been kind of sleeping on this one. I think this is going to be one that you really should consider picking up, even if you're not a big fan of movie toys, because this is going to be one of those larger Transformer figures when everything's said and done. A lot in the same ways that everyone looks at, let's say like in the G1 era, let's say you're a Transformer collector during Beast Wars and even in the early days of Robots in Disguise, even though Devastator is the most iconic and maybe you had a favorite Scramble City guy, you couldn't deny just how massive Predaking's toy was and what made him stick out. And it's kind of the same thing here, where don't sleep on this movie Devastator. Even if you're not a big fan of it, this thing's going to be a big guy. And I think he's going to be really expensive later on, just considering by how many individual parts it takes to make this big guy. But here's the big shocker, the one that's the most interesting of them all. And it's the announcement of a Studio Series number 49 Voyager scale Sentinel Prime from Dark of the Moon. This is pretty cool because Sentinel Prime really has not had a toy of that movie design for a very long time. He kind of with the exception of, just kind of looking at my shelving, with the exception of a tiny turbo changer that came out in 2018, everything was kind of like all his toys came out during that bubble of Dark of the Moon. And that bubble of Dark of the Moon was essentially like 2011, 2012, which it was, all those movie toys from Dark of the Moon, the Creo stuff that was going on at the same time, the bot shots that were going on at the same time, the Speed Stars. I mean, there was a lot of just Sentinel Prime product because he was that new character, but all that was something that, as crazy as this sounds, 8-9 years ago almost. He had like little, collectible figures here and there. I think like they did the Thrilling 30 where they did those little super deformed figures and stuff, but that's not really like an articulated figure, even it's a small little figure. And that was really it. I think, when did that come out? That came out also like around that time. I want to say 2013, 2014. So he's really hasn't had a transforming toy in a long while, let alone one that, satiates our appetite of what we are looking for high quality product. And this is a character that he had his Cyberverse scale, which is like a legend scale. And they did that like in 2 color schemes. And that was, that did its job. And then he had, the infamous, and I say infamous, the infamous Voyager scale toy in 2011, which, it was infamous because it actually had a spoiler on the toy, which was the toys came out, I want to say like maybe like a month and a half before the movie did. And right on the toy, spoiler for people who haven't seen Dark of the Moon, that he was going to be a traitor. And, he also had in that same scale and that same mold of that Voyager one, there also was a lucky draw that was limited to 10, and it was done in gold. And then we have the very famous and pretty much was everyone's standard Sentinel Prime toy for years, the Leader Class, which is a really good figure, a really, really, really good figure. And a little complicated for some people. That was the biggest complaint that a lot of people had about that toy, but otherwise it was a really damn good Leader Class toy and a great representation of that character. And of course, like I said, all the merchandise, the Creos, the bot shots, the little PVCs, the tiny turbo changer I just mentioned, the Speed Stars, but for the longest time, the best Sentinel Prime toy was that Leader Class one. And if we could get something in that Voyager scale that really like knocks it out of the park, and Studio Series has been doing that, this should prove to be very interesting. Now, it's interesting that they went with the Voyager scale, so I really hope that the budget and the parts that will be available will make it a realistic endeavor and make it look good. Because that leader class, part of the reason why it was so good back in 2011 was because it was a leader class. It had the budget. It was able to pull that off. More parts, more pieces, more beauty, more paint. So let's hope that that's going to be cool. That's going to be cool. I'm excited about it. Sentinel Prime was probably the highlight of Dark of the Moon for me. I went into that movie all cocky, like, man, I know my Transformers. Yeah, Sentinel Prime. Yeah, he was the guy before Optimus. So this should be good, right? Little did I know, I shouldn't have been sleeping on that animated character at the time who was a bit of a dick, and realizing that that's probably the route they were going to go, except he was going to go full traitor in this case. So I was actually surprised in theaters when he killed Ironhide. I was like, oh damn, So that being said, this is pretty cool. Let me know what you think about this. I'm excited. It's an interesting choice for a Voyager, but I hope they do a great job. There's an April 2020 release date for Japan, so I'm going to assume probably around the same time for us.